What's up, guys? This is Master Joda, and today we're going to be playing a little Pekka balloon freeze. I'm number 5,721 in the world right now. It is early season, but we're still going up against some pretty solid players. I will not be playing live. I'm just going to be going over some of the replays I have for you. And so getting into this first game, we're going against Graveyard Freeze. So this is kind of an interesting matchup. This can be a tough matchup if you're playing Balloon, just because they have so much air defense, and the Tornado Freeze combination can be really kind of tricky to break through. But let's see what happens here. So we're just going to start off with zapping his tower, getting a little chip damage on the tower to start it off. And you just kind of want to play this deck reactively. You don't really want to get too aggressive in single elixir. It is a more dominant deck when it comes to the double elixir, just because it is a little bit heavier. You got the Pekka, the Balloon, and you're not going to want to overcommit with an early freeze and not be able to defend the enemy's pushes. So most of the time, the matches, you want the single elixir time to be a little bit slower with this deck. So let's see what happens here. Alright, so I get a little bit tired of just waiting, so I go with the Lumberjack in the back, and he goes with a Baby Dragon in response, and an Ice Whiz. So we're just going to throw down an Ice Whiz and a Baby Drag to deal with that, and see what happens from here. Okay, so at this point, we kind of realize what deck it is that we're going against. And since he just used all of his air counters, we actually go with a Balloon in the left. And in response, he goes with a Graveyard in the right. And we're going to have a Pekka to deal with that bowler pretty nicely. And we are going to Lumberjack to distract that Inferno Drag right at the last second. So guys, this deck that he's playing is actually a pretty good counter to my deck, but you just have to pay attention when he uses his counters. So he blew his Ice Whiz and his Baby Dragon in the early game, and then right after that, he used his Inferno Drag. He was just cycling all his air counters, so right as soon as I realized that, I knew he didn't have a good response besides Tornado for the Balloon that I put down. So that was the optimal time to go in for the Balloon push there. And all it took was that one push to win me the game, and then I just had to defend those couple of graveyards that he tried, and that was GG. And if you'll see right here, you got to be really intent on blocking the bridge before their troops cross the bridge, because then they don't have a tank for the graveyard. So that's a big thing that you need to pay attention to in these graveyard matchups. Because if the graveyard doesn't have a tank for it, then your tower will be targeting skeletons and you'll take a lot less damage. So getting into this next match, we're actually facing graveyard again. So this was pretty nice that we had a couple graveyards matchups to go against in this video to show you how to deal with it. So I think this one kind of starts off a little bit slower as well. So let's just see what happens here. So if the opponent is just, not doing anything and you really don't feel like waiting, even though this is a double elixir deck, a Balloon first play isn't a terrible play. I wouldn't suggest going in with the freeze with it in this early game in single elixir, because you can get punished really hard unless you just get insane value from the freeze, like he drops bats and some other troop that you'd get pretty good value from. But that's a very niche situation, and I would not suggest going in for a Balloon freeze that early, or in single elixir at all, really, unless just the opportunity is perfect. So right here, we're just kind of bouncing each other out, filling out each other's decks. no significant damage yet. He did get some nice chip damage on me with that first graveyard he went in for, but nothing too big. If you'll see, he said oops right there. It's because he went in for his Mega Minion and pretty much wasted it, and he knew I had Balloon in hand, so he had to respond with the arrows there. And you'll see I did go in for a freeze there, but it was at the very end of single elixir time, so it wasn't too big of a deal there. So I'm going to start off with a Pekka in the back. And in double elixir, really, to be able to break through your opponent's decks, especially the decks that are harder to break through, you're going to want to build these massive Pekka pushes. I didn't catch his knight in time, kind of like we talked about in the last game. I didn't catch his knight before the knight crossed the bridge, so that knight was still tanking for the graveyard. So we're going to go in for the balloon here. Got it raged up from the lumberjack, and we were going to freeze. He had to respond with arrows, so that was pretty nice. Got those arrows out of his hand. And this time we're going to be ready with the lumberjack when he goes in for the graveyard. So if you'll see right here, block with the lumberjack at the bridge, and then I have the baby dragon to respond to the graveyard and helping out the princess tower there. So just putting some opposite lane pressure on him with the balloon. He's going to have a pretty good response to that. Let's see here. I'm going to go in with a Pekka on that cannon cart. I kind of panicked there. I should have dropped the lumberjack on the knight instead and then had the ice whiz for the graveyard, but I still got the job done. It actually kind of worked out for me because having the lumberjack to defend that knight, I'm going to have the lumberjack for the balloon push right here, which I believe this push ends the game if I'm not mistaken. So let's see, I zap the Mega Minion to kill it with the baby drag and freeze with the raged up balloon, and that is going to be GG's. Alrighty, so that's 2 graveyard matchups. Let's go ahead and get into the next game. So this one is going to be a beatdown deck. So the great thing about this deck, guys, if you struggle against beatdown, giant beatdown, goblin giant, golem especially, this deck really excels, especially if you're going against a lot of like aggravating golem clone decks and stuff like that, those types of shenanigans. You got the ice whiz, you got the baby dragon, you have the tornado zap, and then, I mean, of course, most importantly, you got the Pekka to deal with those huge beatdown pushes. So, I mean, pretty much most beatdown decks, you're going to have the upper hand. There are some exceptions that can get a little interesting, but for the most part, you're going to be able to handle those big beatdown pushes very nicely, just with the synergy from the Ice Whiz, Baby Drag. So he sent a lumberjack, and he didn't have anything supporting it, so we got the easy King Tower activation right there. You want to place that tornado right above the left side of the King Tower, the square right above the left corner, top left corner, and that'll be a nice activation. Get that King Tower helping us out with some of these defenses. All right, he's gonna fireball, and I'm just gonna cycle a baby drag. And just to fill him out here, I'm going to get a little aggressive. I knew I had a little bit of an elixir lead, so I just went ahead and went for the balloon. Again, I wouldn't suggest doing this a lot. It can pay off sometimes, but a lot of the times you will end up getting punished. But I knew I kind of had an elixir advantage on him at that point. He had just used a Mega Minion and a Fireball, so I knew that it wasn't too dangerous of a situation, but you're going to just have to feel the situation out on a case-to-case basis and be able to tell when you're going to be able to go in like that in single elixir. But I would say most of the time it's safer not to. And just the way his deck is, I could tell it was a golem deck, and I was going to be able to defend his pushes pretty nicely. He did catch me off guard here with the cannon cart in the left lane, so he did actually get my left tower here, which was a pretty nice move on his part. But let's see what happens as the game goes on. We get a nice Pekka hit right there. So we have the advantage right here. We have a pretty big damage advantage. Got about half that tower taken care of. He again caught me off guard with that cannon cart in the middle, so I tornadoed it to the left to get that off my tower. Gonna put some pressure on him here with the balloon. Let's see what happens. Gonna get a nice freeze. And I got the balloon hit there. So only 160 damage left. He's going pretty aggressive here. He knows he can't just play passively now. Let's see. I believe I'm gonna go in for the balloon freeze here for the win. I'm gonna wait for his air counter and boom, freeze. And I actually missed the baby dragon there, but it ended up paying off anyways. I think the death damage would have gotten the job done anyways. So let's go ahead and get on into our last matchup here, guys. And a big thing for this deck that you need to pay attention to is, okay, so I'd pay attention to two types of pushes for this deck. You have your counter pushes when you get a good defense with your Pekka and you build a huge push behind it to punish your opponent for overextending, or you just build a massive push starting your Pekka in the back and getting your Ice Whiz, Baby Drag, and then your Lumberjack and Loon after that. So you want to have your Lumberjack in front of your pushes, guys, because it's going to have that rage effect, raging everything up and just making it more devastating for your opponent. So let's see what we have for the last match here. And I think it's another, well, actually it's not a Golem deck. This is actually a really weird deck, and it's funny because the guy, I checked his ranking after, and he had a top 10,000 finish last season, and I think he had a 7,000 trophy season where he had finished, I think, around 1,500 in the world. So he's actually a pretty solid player, but he had a really odd deck, and it kind of caught me off guard in some circumstances in this match. So let's see what happens with this one. So we're just kind of playing a little passive here, sending out the laughing emotes. I actually was trying to send an emote and misclicked and dropped that balloon in the back. So yeah, I was like, oops, shaking head emote. I'm going to get a zap here, see if I can get a little bit of tower damage. I thought I was in big trouble here. He goes in for the Prince. I just get the Pekka down in the nick of time, and I will be able to defend this one. And the great thing about this, guys, when you drop a troop like Pekka to defend, they're going to think you're just completely zapped of elixir and you don't have anything to respond to the hog with. But that NATO, you know, just, it does perfect against hog. So you can pretty much blow your elixir to defend their big push, and when they think you're just completely out of answers, especially in the early game when they haven't seen that you have tornado, they'll go in the opposite lane thinking that you're not going to have an answer for it, and you just get a nice easy king tower activation there. So let's see here, getting close to double elixir time, just kind of cycling cards. Baby drag in the back. That's going to be able to deal pretty nicely with that Dark Prince. I know it's about to hit double elixir time, so I'm going to go in with the Lumberjack, and I'm going to go in with the balloon and get the freeze ready. I'm actually going to... Oh, okay, I did go in for the freeze. I thought I was at first, but I went in for the freeze. I actually get two... Oh, okay, I got the entire tower there with that push, so that was very nice. I'm going to go in with the Ice Whiz to answer that. And the Baby Dragon. That really threw me off when he went in for that. I found out that he had a mirror, but it didn't really matter at that point because Pekka is going to be able to deal with that push pretty easily. And at this point, it's pretty much GG's. I mean, we have a good counter for him. He did go in for a pretty nice Prince there, but it's just too late at this point. got the zap, got the freeze. I can just kind of, stall them out at this point, and that's going to be GG's. So we deal with hog pretty easily, beat down pretty easily. So if you're playing against a bunch of hog, a bunch of beat down, this is the perfect deck for it. And yeah, looking at this guy here, ranked 7,000 last season, his best season 1,500. So a pretty solid player there. And as you can see, we just dealt with his deck, pretty easily. Just the Tornado and the Pekka combination with the Ice Whiz and Baby Drag just deals with these kind of decks great. And while Graveyard is going to be one of your tougher matchups with this deck, as you can see, you definitely can still win matchups against Graveyard. You just have to be sure that you're blocking the bridge when they're going in for the Graveyard, so they don't have a tank for it, and that way your Princess Tower can be attacking the skeletons. And also, since you have Tornado in the deck, if you can get a King Tower activation versus Graveyard, that will pretty much even the matchup out, because then when they go in for the Graveyard, you'll have your Princess Tower and your King Tower shooting the skeletons, and it'll pretty much split the damage in half, maybe even more. So that is a big key when facing hard matchups like Graveyard, guys. Thanks for watching the video. If you liked it, please subscribe, hit the bell, and just like the video. I really appreciate all the support that I get from any of you guys. If you didn't like the video, tell me what I could have done better to make you more interested in coming back for the next one. I am new to the whole YouTube thing, guys, so bear with me. I'm working really hard on trying to figure out the whole video editing thing. As you can see, this is the first video I've done that has had voice commentary over the games. I plan on doing more of that in the videos to come. And eventually I'll have some live gameplay for you guys, so you can see some live commentary and my thought process while I'm actually playing a game live. So thanks for watching, and please come back for the next one.